This news program is proudly brought to you by Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits and Now Biscuits.
Pathways to development amidst COVID-19. Book titled Papua New Guinea Government, Economy and Society launched. Social law and order problems arise in communities. Good evening, this is National EMTV News. I'm Godwin Eki. Thank you for joining us. A two-day program of 2022 PNG update with the theme Pathways to Development amidst COVID-19 and beyond PNG's 10th election started today at the University of Papua New Guinea. Prime Minister James Marape delivered the opening remarks, stating that we have the potential to transform our nation to become a 200 billion kina economy.
The Prime Minister James Marape, Australian High Commissioner to PNG John Philp, Chancellor of UPNG Robert Igara, Vice Chancellor of UPNG Professor Frank Griffin, UPNG Council members, secretaries, registrars, pro-vice chancellors, deans of various schools and dignitaries were all there at the new lecture theatre for this event. Prime Minister James Marape said his priorities are to invest on strengthening democracy, build a resilient economy, harnessing natural resources, building a strong agricultural base, committed to SME, addressing law and order issues, and giving priorities to health and education. He said one of the most significant issues that will face the government during the 11th Parliament is the long-term future of Bougainville and finding a lasting solution to maintain peace.
Resources and opportunities are abundant. See it from the perspective of an optimistic person. And as you present here, especially Papua New Guineans, present your presentations with recommendation. As I want to conclude, present your presentations with a recommendation. Don't leave it half empty. Bring it to the table half filled.
Prime Minister mentioned the challenges faced since 1975 and urged every citizen to respect the rule of law in the country.
We have the resources. Government is doing absolute best to unbundle them and put in policy that could ensure we move to a 200 billion kina economy in this decade, so that we fulfill our Vision 2050 aspirations, fulfill the mandate of our fathers in 1975, but it starts with you and me. Be optimistic in life.
Marape concluded that as a government, they remain committed to do everything to grow the economy and improve the lives of all people in the country. Estagane, National EMTV News.
The book titled Papua New Guinea Government, Economy and Society was launched at the 2022 PNG Update Program today at University of Papua New Guinea. This book was written by experts from the University of Papua New Guinea, Australian national universities and other universities in the country based on recent research and reports with recent data.
While launching the book, the Chancellor of UPNG Robert Igara presented the book to the Prime Minister James Marape. The Executive Dean for School of Business and Public Policy, Professor Laxmi N. Pillai, stated that more than a decade ago, much have changed and there is a need for recent report based on recent data.
The two most recent social science volumes on Papua New Guinea were both written more than a decade ago. Ron May's edited volume, Policymaking and Implementation, Studies from Papua New Guinea, was published in the year 2009 by ANU Press. And Thomas Webster and Linda Duncan's edited volume, Papua New Guinea's Development Performance, 1975 to 2008, was published in 2010 as a National Research Institute report.
He mentioned that the book launched has 7 chapters, and the first part is about politics and governance, including elections and corruption. The second part includes the trends in the microeconomic and also living standards, Parts of the book also talks about the uneven development and communications.
These chapters are a mix of literature surveys and data analysis. The surveys provide up-to-date summaries of the vast amount of research undertaken, research the authors have themselves often involved in generating in their respective fields. Most take a historical perspective, looking at the changes over time, mainly since, but sometimes also from before independence.
Professor Pillai said there is limited number of hard copies, but the entire book can be downloaded from the University of Papua New Guinea's website. Esther Gane, National EMTV News.
Education Secretary Dr. Uke Kombra has assured grade 12 students and parents that the department will sort out issues before marking the exam papers. He made these comments following the errors found in the grade 12 geography examination paper on Tuesday this week. According to the Education Department, marks of students who have taken the geography subject this academic year will not be affected, as they will use internal assessments of students as a guide before marking the papers, and other measures will be taken into consideration before marking the exam papers. South Bougainville constituency has been facing certain law and order issues in the last couple of weeks. The acting South Bougainville Police Commander, Inspector John Popui, has appealed to local people there to respect the rule of law and to settle differences through peaceful means.
Commander of the South Bougainville Police, Inspector Popui, has made this appeal following several reports of incidences in the last few days. In Siwai, several houses were torched down in the Kopi area, resulting from a land dispute. This has led to two separate roadblocks yesterday morning, one at Titonu High School area and the other at Monoitu Junction. Police have also received reports that several family homes at Kanauro were torched in flames, following a minor dispute between villages of Tugiogu and Kanauro. This has prompted Inspector John Popui to intervene immediately. He has further appealed to the local people to settle their differences peacefully. Inspector Popui has made an urgent call to the chiefs in the communities to address their issues in their respective villages. Attempts for peace mediations by the South Bougainville Police are continuing. The South Bougainville constituency comprises of Bana Rural, Buin, Siwai, and Torokina LLGs. Lindy Suharupa, National EMTV News.
Social law and order problems arising in communities throughout the country can be addressed if all citizens work together to maintain peace and harmony in their individual communities. These statements were echoed by PNG Tribal Foundation.
Ongoing problems currently faced in our communities can be reduced if families and individuals come to some level of understanding in villages and communities. The Sentencing Person Campaign Coordinator Yana Limyana from the PNG Tribal Foundation says different issues faced in villages throughout the country need to be addressed. Therefore, community leaders and individuals are urged to address these issues accordingly.
Community leaders working together. It doesn't matter whether you are from the highlands and you are living here, you are from the coast and you are living up in the highlands, or you are a nurse, you are a doctor, you are a church pastor from a different denomination. If it is happening within the vicinity of your community where your congregation members are or people that you influence are, it is a call for action. But I also have the responsibility to behave as a civilized citizen.
Tieba Jurenuk, a support staff of the PNG Tribal Foundation, also echoed the same sentiments.
We have seen that everything starts in the family. One of the things that we pointed out clear in the communities is family is the foundation of a society. So if we have a stronger family and we have a family that teaches the children good values and a non-violent way of handling issues, then we will have children growing up to be better citizens of the nation, and then And then when there's issues, they don't know what's the right way to address issue. So when family plays a very important role, and parents also plays a very important role. If we want to eradicate violence in society, then we have to eradicate violence in the family, because everything starts in the family.
Law and order issues must be seen as everybody's business to help curb at their community levels. Jim John, National MTV News.
National MTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. You're watching National MTV News. 15 Air Niugini staff have successfully completed training on how to support victims of family and sexual violence within the workplace. This training was conducted by Business Coalition for Women and was focused on raising awareness and equipping volunteers with knowledge on providing support and protecting those faced with family and sexual violence.
This two-day training was conducted as part of the Barely PNG program by the Business Coalition for Women. Some areas covered in the training include counseling, welfare, interim protection order, hospital and accommodation, amongst other topics covered. Such trainings are important as it ensures airline staff who may be faced with violence can get needed support through a well-coordinated program. This was alluded to by Air Niugini's Chief Executive Officer, Bruce Alabaster. He further added that with female staff making up to nearly 60% of staff numbers, this program is more critical. Alabaster commended the 15 staff who have volunteered to play this important role in the workplace. Lindy Suharupa, National MTV News.
Today, journalists from both the mainstream and private online media platforms gathered for a media workshop conducted by United Nations Office on Drug and Crimes. Media organizations such as MTV, NBC and FM 100 and print media, including the president of the PNG Media Council, Neville Choi, was also present and part of the half-day workshop. A workshop on anti-corruption by UNODC highlighted some key areas for journalists when it comes to reporting on crime and corruption. John Hyde of UNODC said that reporters can help stop corruption by reporting on corruption and those involved in the act.
The role of journalists is very, very important in terms of getting to the real story. And so that's why the Pacific Anti-Corruption Journalists Network, working with the UN Office of Drugs and Crime, is looking at giving more skills and training to journalists so they're able to find the best sources, the best information that helps them get to the true complex story that involves corrupt activities.
John said while corruption can come in many different ways, it can also affect individuals, communities and those in higher position, including politicians.
And very much corruption can be bribery. It can be nepotism, where somebody's getting a prize job but they're not entitled to it. Somebody who's got qualifications misses out because they're not related to somebody, or they're not involved in the same church, or they may not be in the same rugby club. So there are whole levels of corrupt behaviour that stop the economy in PNG and throughout the Pacific thriving and enabling people to have prosperous, happy and safe lives.
President of the PNG Media Council, Neville Choi, said that the workshop was beneficial for reporters to fully understand the role they play when it comes to reporting on crime and corruption.
It's an important task, and I think the role of journalists and the media in PNG needs to be understood more clearly. A lot of times people in the public space see journalists as an opportunity to vent their frustrations about their own shortcomings or the fact that they are in positions of leadership and have to be held accountable to what they do or what they don't do or fail to do.
He added that reporters should make it their responsibility on finding out how to report on corruption.
I think each reporter should realize that the only way that they can improve themselves in their reporting is to finding out more about how to report on corruption issues or anti-corruption, and to just make sure that they do their own research. I mean, it's one thing writing a story and filling up a page or filling up space on your bulletin online, but finding out the story behind the story and why something has happened. As we learned today, there are bigger issues and connections that could be part of the story that aren't being recognized.
The workshop ended with a group photo session. Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program today carried out a training program for various organizations that deal with waste disposal and waste management. The program was organized to strengthen the capacity of parties in the Pacific region related to national legal and institutional framework, enforcement prevention, and combating of illegal traffic and trade in hazardous chemicals and waste to implement the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. The Secretariat of the Pacific Regional Environment Program today held a training session at the Gateway Hotel, mainly focused on 3 different conventions, which included the Basel, Rotterdam and Stockholm Agreement, according to the Director for Pacific Regional Center, Waigani. Director Joshua Sem says the conventions are important for those companies that participated today in the training.
Done a refresher on the overview of the Basel as well as the Rotterdam and Stockholm Conventions, what they entail, various obligations of parties to them. And then we've mainly focused on illegal trade and trafficking in waste and chemicals, because it is now slowly evolving into a concern for a lot of countries ever since China placed a ban on accepting imports of plastic waste in 2018.
He said that it is important for waste management companies to fully understand national legal and institutional frameworks to implement the conventions and waste in a regional workshop in a combination of face-to-face sessions running in parallel with participating countries with a regional online training.
The other component of the project is we've engaged a legal consultant to help PNG work with the Office of the Legislative Council to draft legislations and in particular regulations that will help to domesticate PNG's responsibilities under the conventions. So yes, we are actively working with SEPA to help them develop those regulations.
The training was to help waste management companies with capacity building, knowing legal framework and other areas such as enforcement, illegal trade and traffic, role of customs in the enforcement of the Basel Convention identification of illegal traffic, and the role of police. From Total Waste Management, Director Corey Chan said it was really important to see these PrEP highlight areas of improvement when it comes to waste management.
One, to drive awareness and education about international conventions that exist, and particularly a country like Papua New Guinea, where we're heavily industrialised when it comes to the Pacific Islands nations. We tend to produce a lot of different waste materials where we don't have the facilities right now to be able to treat and dispose of it in country. So I guess this workshop is really about understanding what those international conventions are, understanding the risks that are involved, understanding the potential penalties that are involved, but also the processes. But I think what it's highlighted as well is, just the importance of, one, if we truly appreciate and respect our environment, we need to make it a #1 priority.
He said it is important to understand the legal framework when dealing with waste management.
From our perspective at TWM, we've been sort of abiding by some of these international conventions and regulations and standards when, with the shipment of hazardous waste offshore. Okay, so, but I guess we're also on a journey as a company, and I think it's important to have private sector mixing with public sector to drive awareness and improvement in the system. You know, as a company, we're looking at introducing in-country treatment and disposal. And that way it can help mitigate some of this risk about reducing the amount of shipments overseas carrying hazardous waste. So, you know, it's really important to have these sort of workshops, have that interaction between different departments, and also having private sector, you know, because I think to create and build a waste sector, you need the private sector to drive it, okay? And then we need to be able to push government and the public sector to recognise it, but also to provide the framework and the systems and the processes where it can make it a fair playing field, but also make it a compliant playing field as well.
Corey added that it was also important to discuss the national experience of handling cases of illegal traffic in hazardous and other wastes, problems associated with chemicals in the Pacific region and capacity building initiatives which were deliberated throughout the training. And now looking at the Nest Fund market report, the Kina closed unchanged at $0.2840 US in the interbank market. At Bank South Pacific, your Kina is buying $0.2765 US, $0.4368 Australian dollars, $0.2740 euro, 40.86 Japanese yen. Looking at commodity prices, New York closed, gold is trading higher, coffee and cocoa closed lower, copra closed higher, palm oil closed lower, crude oil and copper closed higher. On the stock market, the Dow Jones, ASX 200 and the All Ordinaries are trading higher. National EMTV News continues after the break. Stay with us. Welcome back to the news. The exercise on recording and documenting the different customs of Papua New Guinea was launched at Breina Station in the Kairuku district of Central Province this week. Lead agency, the Constitutional and Law Reform Commission, began the exercise with the recording of customs of Nara, Gabadi, Kuni Maipa, Roro, Waima, Mekeo, and Koapo language groups by interviewing elders, chiefs, community leaders, and village court magistrates.
CLRC Secretary Dr. Mange Matui said the exercise is part of CLRC's mandate on developing the underlying law or the indigenous legal system of PNG. Dr. Matui said the customs, including the customary laws, values, principles, languages and practices collected throughout the country will be pulled together and made accessible to the courts to apply after endorsement by the Parliament. The project in the Kairuku district is the first custom recording proper after CLRC facilitated 34 pilot projects in selected provinces from 2016 to 2019. The exercise will also be carried out in the Rigo district next week and subsequently cover the rest of the districts of Central Province, as well as the Motu Koitabu villages by the end of 2024 before venturing into other provinces. CLRC Commissioner Dr. Dora Ayus, who officiated at the launch, said even though our forefathers adopted the English common law at independence in 1975, their original intention was the creation and development of our own customs that would eventually replace the English common law to suit our purpose and context. Dr. Matu stressed that the exercise on the recording of all the customs of PNG is a mammoth task. But he added that he was thankful to the government for the funding support and for giving due recognition to the importance of this exercise in nation building. Dr. Matui also acknowledged the support and cooperation of key stakeholders, including the Department for Justice and Attorney General, Public Solicitor Office, State Solicitor PNG Judiciary, UPNG School of Law, and the National Museum and Art Gallery. Esther Gane, National EMTV News.
In overseas news, Russia's week-long campaign of bombings on Ukraine's electricity system has wiped out almost a third of the country's power supply.
The latest hits came on Kyiv's northern outskirts. 3 drone bombs struck a power station there. Although there were no reports of casualties, Ukrainian authorities have generally cast a pall over detailed information on military assaults on all critical infrastructure. Further east, another plant was bombed into Dnipro. The destruction is sapping Ukraine's overall supplies at a time when Russia's exerting full military control over the Zaporizhia nuclear station. It remains subject to a security shutdown, providing no power to Ukraine at all.
Because those kamikaze drones now appear to be Russia's weapon of choice, it's almost impossible for Ukraine to defend its assets. There are simply too many of them, and using high-tech, expensive air defence systems is not applicable. So, if this keeps up, there's every possibility that the winter approaching will present hardship on a scale not experienced so far in this war.
The weather is set to intensify over New South Wales over the weekend, impacting Lower Hunter region around Sydney.
Coming days, and this could lead to major and minor flooding across New South Wales. There are still a number of emergency warnings in place in the state, and a lot of those are in Moama, which is a community in the New South Wales and Victorian border. But some other areas of concern include the Murrumbidgee River in Narendra, as well as Darlington Point. People in the town of Darlington Point have started preparing for flooding in coming days. They've started sandbagging as well as deploying water pumps ahead of a flood peak that is expected tomorrow. Now, the Bureau has also said that there will be heavy rainfall in the northwest slopes around Moree, and it won't just be persistent rain and showers in the area, but they're also expecting severe thunderstorms as well. And closer to us here in Sydney, we are expecting the heaviest rainfall on Saturday. This could lead to minor flooding in the Greater Sydney area, and it could also impact parts of the Hawkesbury River as well as the Lower Hunter region. Here's what the SES had to say about what we can expect from this rain.
We do have some concerns around the upcoming weather events. We currently do have some major thunderstorm activity in the northwest and central west of the state, which is impacting upon those areas there. That is causing some renewed river rises in those areas and some additional concerns.
Britain government is facing further uncertainty after Home Secretary Suella Braverman resigned.
And that she was, not going to be under threat in the coming days. But then in the afternoon here, we found out that the Home Secretary was resigning over a breach of the ministerial code. Now, what apparently she did was send a government official document via her personal email to a parliamentary colleague. That was considered a breach. She resigned. But what she did as she resigned was put out a resignation letter that took a real swipe at the Prime Minister, criticising the government for the direction it was heading in, criticising the government for breaking promises with the electorate. And in particular, Suella Braverman is the Home Secretary and is very passionate about stopping asylum seeker boats coming from France across the English Channel to the UK. And she seemed to be suggesting that Liz Truss was backing down on some of the policies relating to that. So there was a real kick in the tail of that resignation letter.
You're watching National EMTV News. Trukai Sports is next. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
Welcome to Trukai Sports. We begin with overseas sports. An Iranian athlete, who competed in a climbing event in South Korea without hair hijab, says it dropped off by mistake.
Has become a symbol for the protest movement for not wearing the mandatory headscarf. Elnaz Rakebi was representing her country in South Korea when she made what appears to be a very public show of support for women back home who are fighting against the compulsory hijab. To the alarm of her family and friends, Elnaz Rakebi then vanished from her hotel. There are reports her phone was confiscated. This post then appeared on her Instagram. I, Elnaz Rakebi, it says, apologize for getting everybody worried. Due to bad timing and the unanticipated call for me to climb the wall, my head covering inadvertently came off. BBC Persian understands she was sent home early, with one theory that the authorities wanted to avoid protesters gathering at Tehran airport to welcome her. In 2020, Iranian chess umpire Shohreh Bayat also refused to cover her hair at an international competition.
I was asked exactly to write an apology letter on my Instagram and to apologize publicly, and I was given a list of things to do.
She later sought asylum in the UK. The biggest anti-government protests in more than 40 years started after the death of a young Kurdish woman in morality police custody for allegedly not wearing her headscarf properly. Human rights groups say at least 200 people have been killed and thousands detained. Women continue to protest, whatever the risks.
Trukai Sports continues after the break. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports.
You're watching Trukai Sports. The ongoing matches at the Rugby League World Cup in England are going well thus far. The match between Cook Islands and Wales saw Cook Islands defeating the Wales with 18 points to 12.
The game between the Cook Islands and the Wales this morning at 4:30 a.m. saw the Wales scoring the opening try.
Last play, Fleming. Back it goes to Ralph. Ralph with a little kick. Oh, it's a pick up. It's a score.
Cook Islands scored to equalize the score 6-all.
Masters with a break, and he has support. Brilliant from Masters. Anthony Gelling underneath the sticks is simply the finisher.
Wales scored another try, putting them in the lead 12-6.
They were all looking the wrong way. Ollie Olds with a piece of magic. The Welsh have their second.
After half-time, the Cook Islands scored, bringing the score 12-all.
Mola! Oh, I think he's in. I think he's powered his way in there. That was sheer destructive determination. And he's in, and the try is given. And the Cook Islanders are back level again.
Cook Islands did a penalty goal, putting them in the lead. Cook Islands then scored their winning try, putting the final score at 18-12.
He gets up there and touches it down. Try confirmed. Back-to-back tries for the Cook Islanders.
Lindy Suharupa, Trukai Sports.
And that ends Trukai Sports. The weather report is next. Stay with us.
Trukai Sports. Trukai Sports.
This weather update is proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus. With you always.
Weather forecast for the next 24 hours. Port Moresby, showers and possible thunderstorm. Daru, few showers, possible thunderstorms. Kerema, few showers and possible thunderstorms. Alatau and Popondetta, fine and cloudy. In the Momase region, Ley and Wau, few showers and fine. Medang and Wewak, cloudy and showers. Vanimo, partly cloudy. In the New Guinea Islands region, Loringa mostly fine. Kokopo and Rabaul, Buka mostly fine. Kimbe cloudy with few showers. Kavian cloudy with few showers. In the Highlands region, Mount Hagen, Goroka, Kundiawa, Mendi and Wabeg, showers and possible thunderstorm. Waters of southern PNG Indonesian border through Torres Strait to Daru to Kiwai Island to Yule Island to Kerema to Hood Point to Samarai Islands, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of Samarai Islands to Cape Vogel and eastern and western Milne Bay Islands, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of north of Cape Vogel to Ewan Gulf to Finschhafen, seas 0.5 to 1 meter. Waters of Finschhafen through Whittier Straits to CSC and Long Island, seas 0.5 to 1.5 meters. Waters north of Long Island to Medang to Wewak to Vanimo and northern PNG Indonesian border, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of Manus and its western group of islands, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Waters of New Ireland to New Britain and Bougainville, seas 0.5 to 1.3 meters. Ocean forecast: Coral Sea sees moderate northeast to easterly winds of 15 to 20 knots. Solomon Sea sees slight northeast to easterly winds of 10 to 15 knots. Bismarck Sea sees slight easterly winds of 10 to 15 knots. And Pacific Ocean sees slight east to southeast winds of 10 to 15 knots.
The weather update was proudly brought to you by MoneyPlus, with you always.
On Rugby League World Cup on Saturday 22nd, Australia versus Scotland at 4:30 a.m, replay at 7 p.m. On Sunday 23rd of October, England versus France at 2 a.m, followed by New Zealand versus America at 4:30 a.m. Replays are at 9 a.m. and 11 p.m. respectively. Lebanon will go up against Ireland on Sunday as well at 11:30 p.m. And that wraps up the news, sports and weather for Thursday, the 20th of October 2022. The replay of Rugby League World Cup matches between Cook Island and Wales is next after the break. Tomorrow, 4:30 a.m, MTV will telecast live the match between Australia and Scotland. You can watch all the live stream on our website. From all of us here, pleasant viewing. Bye for now.
This news program was proudly brought to you by Smart Start Breakfast Biscuits and Gold Nuggets.